Good morning, Bucknutters. It is Tuesday, February 17th, 2026. I am Dan Rubin. This is the Bucknuts Morning 5 and change. I apologize to you for coming a little bit late. You can look at me and guess my age and figure technical difficulties. You are on point. When this thing changes up on me and I got to flex on the fly and push new buttons, it's always cause for delay, and that is completely my fault. These guys were here with bells on. Garrick, Hodge, Mark Porter, Tuesdays and Thursdays. As we shift away from real football, or I guess games, and we are shifting to total roster management and recruiting. If you go to 24/7 Sports now and click on recruiting, the 2027 class will come up. The 2026 class is considered to be behind us now, theoretically, so we are shifted to 27. You need to get your P's and Q's going. So what we're going to do today is not begin, because we've talked a lot about 27 guys, but Garrick's going to kind of give you, he did a chat earlier this week, a VIP chat, which is, of course, can't miss content and your way to really drill down on stuff you're interested in. We're going to talk about the three guys we think Ohio State is really confident in right now, and three guys that we think may be more long shots. Again, Garrick and I are working on a bigger piece now about how Ohio State is approaching everything from an NFL standpoint that will kind of come out going forward. We're kind of building towards that. But these are kind of your 27 guys, class of 27 guys to know. And Garrick, I will let you take the floor. Let's first do the three guys you think you are confident in. And by the way, these are class of 27 guys who have not yet committed. Ohio State's already doing a great job in 27. If you look at the rankings, I'll check that out here in a sec. But they're off to a great start. So, Garrick, who are the three guys that everyone wants to know? That's going to be a name we talk about here ad nauseum, and go from there, that you think they got a good shot with.
Sure. I did a little pre-show prep and went through three guys that – here's how I broke this down. To qualify for this list, it had to be obviously a guy that Ohio State's interested in, and a guy that I think if Ohio State pushes for, I feel very confident they're going to end up in a scarlet and gray. And for least confident, the way I qualified that is Ohio State still has to have at least a puncher's chance at them. Obviously, it's not like I can just go, down the road, my neighbor, he's not going to Ohio State. There has to at least be a puncher's chance there. And Ohio State has to have him as a priority, is how I had the least confident ranked. All right, so no further digressions, just a quick little context there. I'm going to give an honorable mention before I go for top three for most confident. I couldn't put him in the top three because I'm just not there yet, but I'm close. So I wanted to give an honorable mention to David Gabriel Georges, obviously everybody's favorite running back target. It's a very two-headed race right now with Tennessee and Ohio State. I think both schools are right there. I know a lot of people say that relationships don't matter anymore in the modern recruiting world, and to an extent, perhaps maybe that's true of some kids, but Carlos Lachlan arguably has the greatest relationship with David Gabriel Georges of anyone in the recruiting industry, because he's been recruiting him for years, dating all the way back to borderline 8th grade status. So, and plus, I just know how high of a priority he is to Ohio State, and I just have a feeling that when Ohio State really wants a kid, they find a way to get it done. So, again, not quite confident enough to put him in the top three, but I just wanted to shout him out as an honorable mention. Okay, so number three, I went with A.J. Randall, linebacker from North Carolina, and that was one that kind of shocked me because right now he is a three-star recruit per 247 Sports, but I don't think he's going to stay a three-star recruit for very long. This is a guy that James Laurinaitis visited twice in January. He visited Ohio State November 15th, has always gravitated towards Ohio State. Whenever you talk to him about Ohio State, the guy just lights up. A smile comes across his face. He can't stop gushing about the program. This is a guy, okay, to put it into context, sometimes what Dan Rubin likes to do when you click on a guy's 24/7 Sports profile is don't tell me the ranking, tell me the offer list. Well, Dan, this guy has 50 offers from Division I schools. So I can't imagine this guy's going to stay a 3-star prospect for very long once the recruiting services update their rankings in a couple months here. All right, number 2, I went with Jordan Karhoff, a tight end from DeSales. You might know him as RJ Day's most reliable weapon at tight end. I think that if they really push for him, I think they can get him regardless of what happens with other high priority tight ends on the Buckeyes recruiting list. I think Ohio State wants to take 2 tight ends. And obviously, as we've talked about with the priorities of first-round draft picks, second-round draft picks as it relates to Ohio State recruiting priorities in terms of how much budget they allocate towards each one, I think Jordan Karhoff's a guy that if they really push for, they can get him in, especially since he's toward that Midwest Ohio. He's right down the road. You won't have to leave home at all to come play for your favorite school growing up.
Jordan Karhoff attends where? Is he DeSales?
DeSales, yep.
Come on, man. His Ryan Day's son's the quarterback. If we can't get him, we need to switch to lacrosse. Go ahead.
All right, number 1. It will not be a hard one to guess. I will even let Mark Porter take a guess about who I think I have number 1 here.
Oh, geez. I'm not good at this stuff. Yeah.
Here's a hint. It's an in-state kid.
Boy. I'm not good at guessing these things.
I said it's not hard to guess, but maybe it is hard to guess. I guess I should walk back that statement. Dan, you got to guess who it is?
Like one of the linemen.
Warmer.
Okay. Well, there's 3
Davis
of
Seaman.
them. Yeah.
There you go. Dan got it. Davis Seaman, number 1 most confident in.
Come to Scouting Ohio. I'm running a great site. Go ahead.
Yes. Davis Seaman is my number 1 most confident. I know he's still exploring his options. He still says that he has Auburn as Penn State as schools that are very much in the thick of things. And I don't think that's just lip service. I genuinely believe he's giving those schools an honest look. But hey,
Go ahead.
But
I guess in defense, I've been Keyshawn Telfair and Deontay Malone.
Come on.
And I've been defensive back central the last 24 hours. So those are all the names that popped in my head immediately. And I was like, I don't know if those are the right answer, but
you did Davis Seaman. We were kind of ahead on this one, so he's kind of already in your mark. Do you have Davis?
I think I almost have Seaman committed in my head because of Garrick from months ago. Also I'm like Weimer, Seaman. I'm going through the linemen in my head. You got me. I didn't know you were going to come to me that quickly. You caught me gazing.
Plus, Seaman is a Columbus private school football player who has an offer from Ohio State. Off the top of my head, I can't name one that didn't go to Ohio State with the offer. I'm sure they exist. And chat, who wants to be the trivia king of the day, but I can't remember that. And Mark can't. So, maybe you can. I can't. Can you off the top of your head, Mark, a Columbus private school, Watterson, St. Charles, a DeSales kid who had an offer from Ohio State that they wanted that didn't go there? That would surprise me, especially recently. Chat will tell us if I'm wrong or not. Garrick, take it up.
Yeah, I almost crystal balled him to Ohio State the day I spoke with him after he got his offer in the fall. I didn't want to do that because I know a lot of things change, and I don't want to do that after one conversation. But yeah, like you said, Mark, we've been kind of all over this for months, and I still hold true to this day that it would stun me if he's wearing any other uniform besides Ohio State. All right, least confident. Starting with number 3. And this is an unfortunate development, I guess. It's not really a development, but a couple weeks ago we did If I Had to Predict Right Now, and I predicted Brock Williams in for Ohio State. And I'm getting least confident in that prediction by the day. And there's still a chance here. I still think Ohio State isn't out of it by any stretch of the measure, which is, part of the rules for least confident. Ohio State still has to be alive in the recruitment. And they have to be a priority to Ohio State to qualify for this least confident list. But I'm putting Brock Williams as the least confident. I just hear a lot of Georgia buzz, and quite frankly, I'm buying it. I know Ohio State's still very, very cautiously optimistic. But, hey, if I'm wrong, at least everybody's happy, right? So it's a good thing to be wrong about. Number 2, Maxwell Hiller, a 5-star offensive lineman. There's kind of a argument in the recruiting industry, whether he's a tackle or whether he's an inside offensive lineman. Ohio State's made his top 4, so they at least have a puncher's chance here, but admittedly, they're far behind. He just took a visit in March, and I think that they're slowly making progress. in January, not March. He is taking one in March too. But I know Florida's really high up here. Alabama's really high up here. Tennessee is also involved. So he has official visits set to those 3 schools, and the one he doesn't have an official visit set to yet is Ohio State. So that's kind of a eyebrow-raising thing. We'll see. If Ohio State really pushes here, and I think they're running behind because they were just a little later to really pushing for him than those other 3 schools. But I think Ohio State can make up some ground here. But again, the name of the game is least confident right now. And I just like Florida. I like Alabama a lot better for Maxwell Hiller than I do the other schools.
We got a lot of great questions in the chat. We will get to those. I promise you. We got a lot of great recruiting questions, and we'll get to those. But we're going to do that on the back end of it. All right. So, Mark, don't answer those in the chat. We're going to save those. Mark gets impatient.
I was actually doing a little research for those just in case.
I can feel it when you start to drift. So
I got another screen and I'm scrolling right now.
I can see it. I can feel it. We both have the same ADD medicine, probably. Garrick, take it away. We're down to number 2 here. 3.
Nope, number one.
Okay.
So one I'm least confident in that Ohio State is still pushing for is Honor Falave Johnson, a number 1 safety in San Diego, California. Scheduled to visit April 4th, which we'll talk about that weekend in a little bit. But I'll put it this way. We had an article that said he's coming to visit Ohio State, and then a day later he puts out a top 6 that does not include Ohio State.
I noticed that.
So that just kind of goes, well, how many schools does one have to make up to catch up there?
Is he looking at real estate in Columbus then? Was he coming for?
Maybe. Hey, it's the fastest growing city in America.
It's a nice market.
Right. So, again, not discounting it. We'll see what happens on that visit. Things can change in a hurry. Top schools list can be amended literally 5 minutes from now if anyone wants to. So can commitments, as we found out in this day and age. But yes, that is my number 1 least confident pick that Ohio State is still actively recruiting.
I would encourage everybody to go to 24/7 Sports and look at who Ohio State already has in the fold for 2027 because it's nice. Their current ranking is number 3. Now, rankings are fluid completely here, so I'm in no way geeking out on that. But I do think Ohio State will have a chance to finish with the number 1 recruiting class this cycle. It's a long way to go. A really long way. But there are times at this point when I feel like they will have no chance just based on the way things work out. And keep in mind, the rankings are not just a pure talent account because you get credit for number of recruits. So a group with 30 may outrank a group of 10. We've always kind of looked at average rating per recruit because Ohio State tends to homogenize that. But we will keep an eye on that, and that is stuff you won't want to be all over. Garrick, put this in context of the big visit weekend coming up. It looks like they are targeting April the 4th. Am I right on that?
Well, they're targeting sorry, go ahead.
No, just take it from here. And who's coming and how you feel they're working on that right now.
Yeah. So this isn't really terribly surprising, but there seems to be a trend developing here in terms of spring visit weekends that the last 3 weekends of the spring are probably going to be the most front loaded. And that's March 28th, April 4th, and then April 11th and 12th, which obviously is the spring game itself. Those visits for the spring game haven't really started to leak out yet. They're still probably working on setting a lot of those up. But that weekend is always loaded with spring visitors. It always is. So we know that's going to be a big one. But one that has started to see some priority targets trickle in here is April 4th. And I believe that is going to be Ohio State Student Appreciation Day practice. And if Bucknutters aren't familiar what a Student Appreciation Day practice is, it's when every single student on Ohio State is allowed into the Woody Hayes Athletic Center, should they choose to, and watch the entire Ohio State practice. And by the way, when I say I love Student Appreciation Day, I certainly do. And it's not just because that students finally get an opportunity to see it. It's because us media members finally get an opportunity to watch all 2 hours and 30 minutes of Ohio State's practice. And it's more or less, well, if the students get to watch it, we might as well let the media watch it, right? So that doesn't always work out that way. Usually we get one full practice we get to watch in the spring, sometimes less, sometimes more. But Student Appreciation Day, we usually always get to take it in. And it creates for some chaos on the sidelines, and it creates for some really fun recruiting atmospheres, because students obviously are sometimes the best peer recruiters that you can possibly have for prospective athletes. And I'll give you a good example. Brandon Innes.
Which type of students?
Well,
the females or the males?
Well, both, but I'll give you an example of what I was referring to. So Brandon Innes came to Ohio State Student Appreciation Day years ago, and word leaked out to the student body that Brandon Innes was going to be there for the Student Appreciation Day practice, and like 10 different students came in with like, Brandon Innes, please come to Ohio State signs. And we're rocking them, and Brandon Innes saw it, and the guy just lit up like, wow, I'm 17 years old. How? This is crazy. And there's a couple stories like that for other recruits, and they just gushed up just thinking about it. But anyway, that practice usually is a good recruiting weekend because it has that opportunity to interact with your peers and guys that you could go to school with. Like, wow, these fans already know who I am, and I haven't even stepped in the building yet. Anyhow, without further ado, I'll just give 3 names here that are interesting. And honestly, we've already talked about 2 of them. So AJ Randall, the linebacker from North Carolina, who is in my most confident category for coming to Ohio State. He will visit there on April 4th. I think things are really heating up between Ohio State and AJ Randall, especially with how hard James Laurinaitis is going after him. With Brian Hartline gone, you can make an argument that James Laurinaitis is either the best recruiter on staff or is becoming.
You and I are in a mind meld here, dude. That literally is exactly what I was just thinking. Garrick, please take it away. I'm sorry.
Yes.
I have to say that.
And then Honor Falave Johnson, number 1 rated safety in the 2027 class, is also scheduled to be there. Hopefully he still makes it there now that
he's not coming to Ohio State, but he's here to check out Upper Arlington. He's heard there are great condos.
Yeah, hey, you never know. You never know what can happen on a spring visit. Again, I always tell people, DJ Jacobs was going to Miami until he wasn't. So sometimes you just never say never, and you truly never know. All right, and last one, and this can maybe lead to some digression discussion, maybe not, is but nothing can be disputed that this guy is going to be on the all-name team in college one day, and that is quarterback wonderful Champ Mons is coming to Ohio State.
Wonderful Champ Mons, the 4th.
Oh, well, yeah, there's that too. Champ is obviously a nickname, so his real name is Wonderful Mons, but I can't mention him without saying Champ in it because, it's just a nickname that sticks. But still, I mean, I wish I had the first name Wonderful. That would be awesome.
I wish I had the nickname Champ. If your name's Wonderful, why do you need the nickname Champ? That's kind of a double whammy there. But seriously,
I'm happy with Puba.
Yeah, he's well regarded, Garrick.
Yes, wonderful Champ Mons was emerging as one of the best quarterbacks in the 2028 recruiting class, and then the young man reclassified to 2027. Has 6 spring visits scheduled. Ohio State's one of them. I wouldn't necessarily put them as the front runner, but I would definitely put them as they're going to make things interesting. And I think before we kind of delve into could he come there, could he not, Ohio State kind of needs to decide what they want to do at quarterback because they obviously have a very talented young man named Brady Edmonds committed to Ohio State in the 2027 recruiting class. Now, they may take 2 quarterbacks in 27. As you guys may remember, they hosted basically anyone that was in the top 300 prospects of 24/7 in the 2027 class came to Ohio State and threw in front of Billy Fessler, Ryan Day last June in the recruiting games. Like even a young man named DJ Porter, who we may or may not have a film of, made an appearance at last year's summer recruiting camp tour. But Wonderful was one of the top targets for Ohio State in the 2028 recruiting class. And now that he's shifted to 2027, it would be a disservice to not give him a very standout look. Brady Edmonds has said all the right things, done all the right things. And honestly, I mean, you look at the frame, and I'm sure Mark watched him a little bit at that spring camp. I mean, He's the real deal. The touch, the precision, the arm strength is all there and what you want as a quarterback. But almost more importantly, the off-the-field attitude that you want from a quarterback is 100% there. I think of the guy's personality, and I just hear leader in that guy's the way he carries himself, the way he talks about his teammates, the way he talks about prospective Ohio State recruits. That's just a guy I'd want leading my football team. And I've spoken with Brady about, hey, if they take a second quarterback in 27, what do you think that would mean for you? And he said, I mean, they're going to do what they're going to do. I'm going to have competition when I get here anyway. So it doesn't really matter to me a whole lot. It's just part of the business, and I understand that. So they've obviously broached that subject with him. He knows that it might be coming, but Ohio State hasn't pulled the trigger on a second guy yet and hasn't really pulled the trigger on going after one. But obviously now that we know that Wonderful was a priority for them in 2028, it's worth taking a look at what he can do in 2027. So that will be a development I'll be tracking in April.
Yeah, just to echo that sentiment about last summer, Garrick's not kidding. This is a hyperbolic statement, but pretty much every single quarterback you could possibly think of ever committing to Ohio State, they got to look at last summer from all over the country. Now, the Edmonds family is from California. The whole family came for a week. So all these guys came through town like this, and every day, guess who was standing there? Brady Edmonds. So I think that's also important. All right, we have some great video for you eventually of a defensive back in Ohio, but I think what we need to do now is go through and knock out these questions because they're recruiting oriented, and
there's a lot of questions about Ohio players.
I'm getting to them.
I mean, yeah, I'm going to suggest that every year I get done watching all 1,000 players and ranking every position in Ohio, and that day has come where today was the day that I kind of finish it up. So we might want to spend a whole day going position by position. I know Dan will have articles on this coming out. So
no, we'll do a deep dive on Ohio.
Yeah, I was going to say it looks like there's a lot of skimming here of just names popping up, but boy, we really could go into this class position by position and who like kind of Garrick just did. Here's 3 that have a chance. Here's 3 that are on the bubble, stuff like that. So it's all coming Ohio lovers.
Just to give you a little detail about what Mark's saying, Mark runs scoutingohio.com, which is the premier talent repository database for talent in Ohio. What happens is these kids create a profile on there. They put all their information on there. Behind the paywall, they really put all their information to academics and all that kind of stuff. And then the colleges come through and use that video to kind of decide who they're going to scout and recruit. So Mark has the first word on everyone in Ohio. His rankings are completely in-depth. And the reason it's coming out now is it takes time to go through and review the video of every single person, then put it in order. So, and this is from, who's the top rated? Jameer
Brown on down, yeah.
Jameer Brown to, Denison's last defensive back. You know what I'm saying? In Ohio. So it's everybody. And the dream lives. But that's why Mark is the best.
You really want the numbers about 150, 160 go FBS D1. And I think we're at like almost 300 going to those FCS D2, D3 schools. That's about 500 kids that are going to play college football off Scouting Ohio. So that's what takes so long. There's a lot of prospects that aren't Ohio State caliber I have to watch, unfortunately. And sometimes I get paid to cross kids off the list.
Also, I don't want to go into too much detail on this because we could geek out in this forever, but keep in mind, the lower you go down in athletics, the less of a travel budget those people have. And so they can go, and Ohio is known for so much talent that you can be in, California or Maine and look at Scouting Ohio and offer a kid who's getting it done at Hilliard, somewhere. So that's what it lives for. And look, and we should pay tribute to Ohio. The core reason Ohio State is what it is because this state produces so many studs. We've done the rest of the work too, but if we didn't have that base of Ohio studs every year, we would not be what we are in the Big Ten. That argument has been watered out with California getting involved, but I don't want to. We could spend forever talking about the new stuff. All right, Mika, excuse me. Why hasn't anyone shown interest in Menor High School quarterback Brogan Jones? I think he has potential. Brady Maxwell too. Last quarterback out of Menor that I remember was Mitchell Trubisky. I think that's accurate. And that didn't work out.
Yeah.
I said that only for Garrick because he's a Chicago Bears fan, but I digress. Go ahead.
Scotty Fox was the next quarterback out of Mentor to go to West Virginia. I saw him at West Virginia. He looks fantastic last year. And Brady Maxwell is from Perrysburg, Ohio. The short answer for this question with Brogan Jones and Maxwell is the quarterback position is a rough position to get offered. The quarterback coaches tell me it's a 6-8 month process where they want to get to know quarterbacks. They want to know if they're the face of the program, if they can do the interviews, how they look on a board. They want to see him throw and not just a 50 throw day. They probably want to see him throw a couple times. A lot of offers go out to quarterbacks early that are not committable. They're like, hey, we do like you, and we're pretty sure you're going to pass the sniff test when we see you this summer, and we want to get in on you right now. But being a quarterback dad, the world of quarterback recruiting is the toughest. If I could wish anything for my own son, be like, go play tight end. That's a much easier position to evaluate and get offered. Just in general terms, I like the line. There's 10, 20, 30 linemen going to go D1 in Ohio. There's a lot of those guys. Quarterbacks, there's very few. So
how many quarterbacks went D1 out of the recent class? I'm not trying to stump you.
Yeah, no, it's average of 3 a year, maybe 5. Okay, go D1. And there are years where there's 7 to 9. There's years when there's none or 1 or 2, and I think Ohio State fans know that there's not a lot of years that we produce an Ohio State level quarterback. So a lot of it is about the Pitt and Kentucky and the MAC recruiting. And every now and then we'll have one squeak up to Ohio State. But I think with those two guys in particular, they're going to have to throw in May for college coaches. They're going to have to throw in June for college coaches. And that will complete their evaluation. You'll see some offers there. I've evaluated both of them. They both have talent. I don't know if they're Ohio State guys. I think they're top 10, 15 guys in Ohio, and they're in that mix of guys I'm probably going to see a bunch. And the thing about quarterback is you just don't know who's going to spin it that day. I'm watching a lot of quarterbacks. You guys know. There are good days and bad days for quarterbacks that work out. There are days where you throw a spiral 100 out of 100, and there are days you throw a spiral 70 out of 100. So these guys have a lot of critiquing to go. So I know it's a big answer for Mika there on that. I know they've been asking about Brogan Jones for a while, and they're quality guys. They're both 6'2" guys, good frames. They run well enough. They buy time. They're college level quarterbacks because of their size. You're going to have to get these guys on the radar gun and see what how they're pumping the ball out, who throws it harder. I don't know if either one of them drive the ball as hard as they need to, but they still have 3 or 4 more months of lifting and growing to do before we see them again. The quarterback position's tough. Let's just put it that way.
It's tough, and we've already said Ohio State had in here every single kid in the United States to play quarterback. How many people wake up every morning and want to be the quarterback of their high school team? Everybody. So, your son's learning. When you have the job everyone wants, it is tough. It's tough emotionally. It's tough to be that guy and then be evaluated. You know what I'm saying? When you're so also the barrier of entry to be quarterback at Ohio State is so high. I mean, you're talking about, I'm trying to think for college, you could make an argument that it's QBU right now. I mean, Julian, so we can do that. Also, here's my other point. I wouldn't even rank quarterbacks. If I were running the rankings, and I am not, I would pull out quarterbacks and rank them separately. One, because when you rank quarterbacks with the other players, it's disproportionate because the quarterback position is so valuable that they end up putting guys up there who aren't as talented as the other kids they're ranked against. And 2 years ago, more than half the starting quarterbacks in college football were transfers. So, and I understand quarterback transfer is a different idea than you're not just going to go to the team and work out hard. You got to get on the field. It's not like that. It's different. It should be separated, in my opinion. Even for the NFL draft, I don't think they have anything in common with anything else. You overpay we blatantly admit that we overpay quarterbacks. Whereas if you do that at another position, we're told that's like the death of your program. So
I could finish this dissertation where there are a lot of quarterbacks. There was one in Florida that came to the Ohio State camp. He was starting varsity in 8th grade.
Yep.
And the recruiting starts very early. And like you said, you would wait as long as you could to get as much info to let everybody be apples to apples, so to speak. There are a lot of quarterbacks in Ohio that start as a freshman. Is it because they're great? partly, but it's also because their programs are anemic in some way where they need that kid to step into that role. And he's not necessarily transformational or the next coming of, walking on water. It's just that the level of football and the experience. And then there's 3 other pillars. You need an offensive line.
Sure.
You need receivers. You need a play caller. And then the trigger puller. Okay. So if those 4 pillars aren't there, no quarterback will look great. I've said it before, I think on the show, Pat Mahomes got embarrassed in the last Super Bowl and he hasn't looked really good. And it's not necessarily like he's bad at football. It's the pillars around him. Yeah. Those pillars around him will eventually be fine, but you lose a couple of those and then your evaluation suffers. Okay. And
that's on the coaches. When it's recruiting, that's the actual job. What you're talking about, the crux of that is the job of the coach to look at that situation, all their experience, and yada, 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 and project that guy into your deal. That is recruiting in a nutshell. There are people 100%. Who are really gifted at doing that just have that sensei ability.
And I think sometimes you can say, hey, let's put anybody in that Kyle Shanahan system or that Sean Payton system or these systems that when you plug and play quarterbacks, all of a sudden you see the best version of that quarterback, even if they're not, transcendent. You're like, man, anyone they put in there, they look pretty good. And then they go to another team and you're like, what the heck happened? So that's a big part of quarterback evaluation. You're right. There's only a couple guys, not a couple, but that look through that and say, let me put this lens and put this kid on a different team and see what he would look like there. But boy, it's tough on quarterbacks and their parents, I find. So
no doubt. And there's a guru aspect to this that you just brought up too. Like Sam Darnold went and gurued with Shanahan and got back. Baker Mayfield's career was over. He went and gurued with McVay and now he's back. So there are guys who are great at this. And by the way, one of them is the head coach at Ohio State, which is good for college. All right, Garrick, I'll let you take this one. Does Ohio State get back in on D'Angelo White? D'Angelo White is I first heard about him on the hardwood basketball back in the day. He is a tight end. He is very impressive. He has an Ohio State offer, and he's going to Louisville. There's an NIL development that didn't happen back in the day. As Dave and I were jesting yesterday that Urban Meyer once said, we don't recruit against Wake Forest out loud. He said it out loud. And then he didn't mean Louisville, but it could have been parentheses there. Garrick, bring us up to speed and your thoughts here.
Yeah, D'Angelo White is a 6'6", 245-pound tight end from Cleveland that the way I phrased it when I saw him last spring at the Under Armour camp is this guy looks like a left tackle and runs like a wide receiver. So I don't know if Mark agrees with me or not, but that was my impression from when I saw the young man. And could they get back in on him? Sure, of course they could. But I think that things hadn't been trending in the right direction. I think it was a pretty big sign when he wasn't on campus the past fall, especially when he's 2 hours away from coming up to Columbus. I think Ohio State could get back in it if they wanted to. I don't necessarily know if he's the number one guy on their board right now. Obviously, that's Brock Williams. I should say the number one fallback guy on their board. I wouldn't cross him off completely, but I think that they may have to miss out on maybe 3 or 4 guys before they circle back to D'Angelo White. But yeah, it's not impossible.
Mark, I'm going to set you up.
Okay.
This is Louisville actually has some decent Ohio ties because Vince Marrow is the director of recruiting or whatever you want to call that at each team.
General manager.
Whatever, dude.
Yeah.
He's we know what that means. And so
I was going to say Garrick is burying the lead by not saying Vince Marrow has struck.
Yes.
He was famous for what he did at Kentucky. Kentucky made a nice run over the past 10, 15 years of bringing in Ohio kids, and they had a lot of success there, and he is now general manager. And I tell you what, he's brought a couple kids in from that Cincinnati area, whether it's Taft or, even the Northeast Ohio kid from Villa Angela St. Joe's, D'Angelo. I tell you what, watch out for this. And this is going to be about money. These guys are going to sign early because he's going to offer them a fair contract and try to prey on kids who, how do I say it? That you can get them to make a decision early. Be one of the first in our class. Get some of our NIL now while it's here to give you. If they're not offering you as much as we're offering right now, I think this game's being played, and we're going to have to watch Louisville.
Moeller, tackle, Khalil Johnson. Garrick, maybe tell us what you think about his recruitment, and then Mark, what you think of him as a player.
Yeah, I kind of the same thing. Maybe didn't visit as much as he could have. I think that he's been on campus enough to where that doesn't necessarily matter. Is he a take? Yeah, I think he would be, but I think that before I have him definitively in the class, I need to see him visit either in the spring, set up an official visit, and see that Ohio State's really gunning for him. And quite frankly, see that he develops physically, that they develops as physically as they're hoping that he will over the next couple of months, is I think the fairest way to say it. So, yeah, I like Khalil Johnson a lot. He clearly has a lot of potential. I'm sure Mark can
big fella.
Yeah, Mark can just go over the evaluations on what he's seen from him in his junior film. But, yeah, I think if they want Khalil Johnson, I think he's certainly there for the taking. And if they go all in for him, they're going to be tough to beat. But I think I need to see him schedule a spring visit and maybe an official visit before I get a little bit more excited about the prospects of Khalil ending up in Columbus.
Mark, I have no inside information on this, but this feels like someone's going to be playing tackle at Kentucky to me. I don't know why. I just get that vibe. That they keep in mind if it's our fourth tackle, it may be Kentucky's first or second, and then you're talking NIL, yick. So, Mark, take it away.
How about Louisville to Vince Morrow?
I was just going to say that. I thought that'd be too easy.
I wanted to make sure I got these kids named. The Louisville got Charles Alexander, the big, tall receiver out of Withrow. And I don't know if that battle's over. That kid could blow up, and they're going to have to try to hang on to him. And they also just signed one more player out of Ohio. Let me make sure I have his name right. Sorry, where'd it go? Oh, Josiah Pouncey out of Cincinnati Taft. And he is excellent. He is one of the highest rated linebackers out of Ohio. And this is exactly what I was talking about. He jumped all over this kid early and got this kid built a relationship before he was who I think he is now. And this is going to be one of the best linebackers in Ohio. So he jumped all over some prospects okay. So now to answer your question, when I went to see Khalil Johnson play, he was rotating at tackle with Alex Bolar, okay, who just kind of blew up. He's another offensive lineman at Moeller. So when you guys said Khalil's a little bit of a development player, and over the next couple months, we got to see how his body turns out, that type of thing. Yeah, and Cincinnati Moeller thought that also, where they had another player that was already more ready. Alex Bolar has Kentucky, Pitt, Miami of Ohio, Bowling Green, so he's a heck of a player. He's a Division I player. It's not like he was rotating with another high school kid. So I think when people say, is he a take? Is he in the class? Yes, but he was of the Kellen Weimers, of the Davis Siemens, of the other guys in Ohio. Khalil was a little more of a developmental player who had a little more work to do to become this complete player. So I think that's a pretty from all three of us, you got it from all angles right there.
I think also that there are, at least offensive tackle specifically, they are in the market for, I'm going to call them white whales, because Ohio State has, it's been the biggest complaint, honestly, that I've heard from fans over the last.
Besides kicker?
No. This is going back 4 or 5 years.
Okay,
this isn't just limited to this year. Is that Ohio State has kind of struggled in the recruiting sphere to attract a premier out-of-state offensive tackle. It's not that they haven't tried. It's just that they've come close a couple times. But guys like Mark Matthews, number 1 offensive tackle in the class, guys like a Caden Moss, like they're after those types of guys. Maxwell Hiller, if you consider him a tackle, depends on if you consider him a guard or a tackle. But those type of players first. I think they kind of want to get a clear read on where they stand with those 3 guys, especially because they know that they need that white whale. One of these years they're going to get it. It's just a matter of when they can convince a guy to buy into the track record of Ohio State developing offensive tackles. And but I think that they need to get a little bit more clarity on where they stand with some of those white whales. And one of these years, guys, Ohio State's going to land a premier out-of-state offensive tackle. We're just going.
It's also why you see them work so hard, though, to get the best guys in state. That they are clearly focused on making sure they lock down the state. So if they're not going after Khalil Johnson, my guess is they just don't have him as high up on the food chain there. There was another really. Oh, here's another. It's just we've already kind of gone over this, but it's so relevant that it's about Brady Edmonds. And Garrick, do you believe Brady Edmonds will ultimately end up in the class now that they've started to go after Wonderful Mons? I think we kind of answered that. This question came up before you spoke, but I'll answer this by saying this: yes. It would take something different now to get Brady Edmonds out of the class. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, he's been asked the question and answered it before that, yes, I still would be if they take another one. Maybe it changes if you bring in a guy the caliber of Wonderful Mons. Like I'm just trying to play.
Has anyone done this? This is my question. Has anyone actually done this since the NIL kicked in? Paid 2 quarterbacks what it takes to get 2 young quarterbacks into the fold? I don't know if that. I don't want to get into the salary cap here, but I don't know if that's possible. I don't think you're going to. I could be wrong. I don't think you're going to see 2 top 10 guys go to the same place simply for asset allocation. I could be wrong, but I mean,
I hear what you're saying, and I think let's live in hypothetical land for a minute and say they land both of them. I think one or both would have to take less than what their market value is to end up in Ohio State and go. Look at Ryan Day. Look at how many quarterbacks he's put in the NFL. Look at the numbers that they produce in his system. It's arguably the most quarterback-friendly offense in college football. Do you want to play here or do you not? So I think they'd have to get at least one, maybe both of guys to buy into that to take both of them. But to answer the specific question, would Brady Edmonds still be in the class if Wonderful Mons? I would say yes. It's not a given. Anything can happen in modern NIL recruiting world, but I've asked him before, and he said, yeah, and quite frankly, I believe him. But maybe a quarterback the caliber of Wonderful Mons changes things a little bit, like, oh, man, that guy's pretty good. Maybe I shouldn't. But like you said, Dan, every time I talk to Brady Edmonds, even though he lives in California, the guy bleeds scarlet and gray. It would take a move of colossal proportions to shift him to another school.
At the risk of being hyperbolic, I think it would take something like Ryan Day leaving Ohio State, which is not going to happen. Even though Mark made a funny face there. Go ahead.
My 2 cents on that is I just watched the Niners, trilogy with all that stuff, and they had Montana and Young on the team, and they cut to the NFL meetings the year they put in the salary cap. And the literal quote was, no team will ever have Joe Montana and Steve Young on the same roster again. So if any team does that in college football, that's how you break the cap, because that's what broke it in the NFL. And once teams start doing that, then I think you're going to hear people cry and say, okay, come on, guys. You can't have all the quarterbacks. Now we're all in trouble here. There's only so many of those guys that go around.
Not to mention, you're going to be paying a guy a ton of money for not playing,
Yep.
and other guys in the room who play are going to be making less. I'm going to be like, why is that?
Yeah.
That's not good.
And you know what? Jerry Jones and DeBartolo had the money to pay Steve Young equal to the other guy. Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like, that's the type of overspending that will bring this cap to a screeching halt, or people will say, okay, now we're in the ridiculous times here, just like the NFL did.
All right, you know what? We're going to have to cut this show off right here. We're going to do this video on Thursday now because we are over the allotted time. This was just too good of a show. Too much information from Garrick and Mark. I apologize for that. We will try and trim it down in the future. This video will be great, though. Just wait till Thursday.